Hi guys, my name is Lily and I study architecture in the last bachelor semester, or let's say the semester is done. I only have my exams left and then I'm done with my bachelor. I cannot believe I'm saying this, but I thought I'd sit down with you and talk about how I structure the academic year and what are my tips and little study hacks so you can successfully go through an academic purpose as well. I structured this video in different parts, so if you're only interested in one aspect, you can hop on and go down right into it. You should see it down below, like in the little introduction section of the video. If something like speaks more to you or you're interested in only one part, I welcome you to hop to this part. I have to set the disclaimer here because learning is something very personal. Therefore, I am really open and eager to learn. I love studying. But what might work for me might not work for you. You should take everything with a grain of salt and figure out what works best for you. I really encourage you to test out different methods, and maybe if you want to, you can also give me a little update on what crystallized itself in working best for you. I want to start with how an academic year is structured. So at ETH in Zurich, it's looking like this. We have 12 weeks in a semester, which is not a lot when you think of it time-wise. It's like 3 times 4 weeks, which makes 12. In the middle of the 12 weeks, at least in our case, we have a Seminarwoche, a seminar week. And there you have the possibility to go away with uni, which is amazing. And why I'm mentioning this even, it's like the best part of our studies. So I would really recommend you to do it if you have the financial budget and time. Okay, first to the academics. When you study architecture at ETH, it's looking like this, that you have 3 days lectures, 2 days studio days, which makes a total of 5 days. Now, disclaimer, you have never ever enough time in a week to get through all of it just by thinking of the 9 to 5. This is not how it works when you study architecture. You need to give so much of yourself, you identify yourself so much with the work, so therefore you will work a lot more than this times where you need to attend uni. I structured a year personally a bit different, honestly. Other than this, I try to, in winter, revise my notes a bit, and then in summer, in June, the first week of June, after the presentation and everything, I do holidays. This is necessary. I didn't do that in the first year, and it was a big mistake, because in the first year I was so hard to myself and thought I have to study all the time, otherwise I will not pass those exams, which is completely wrong, and I nearly had a burnout, which I already had previously, so not good. I did so much. I worked like 16 hours each day, so I would not recommend you to do that. Things first, go away, take your time, give yourself that distance that you need from architecture. Otherwise, you will like not be going back happily and inspired and refreshed and with the energy that you need to go through those sessions. After your holiday, I don't know, 7 till 10 days, doing nothing that is related to architecture unless you want to, or you want to visit the Biennale or so, like I did, and you can watch that video if you want to. After that, you come back and you revise your note, you make them complete, you rewatch those lectures that you can. Otherwise, like trying to ask a friend if they can give you the notes and you give something to them in return. So you have all your notes together. Then it's July. I'm in July right now. From the 1st of July, you want to start studying. Not like crazy, but you want to start. What I mean with that is, you sit down with your finished and complete notes, hopefully. If you're not really finished at the first couple of days of July, also not too bad, but you sit down with your notes and you read through them. It's gonna take you a while to get an overview. No worries. At the beginning, it's always a lot, but then after some time, you will adjust to that. And this makes me go to the next step on how to actually study. Summaries are a great tool to like get an overview of the content and to kind of like phrase the things in your words and also weight them on what you think is important. It's really bad tactics if you are the kind of person that thinks everything is not important and therefore you do know summaries or lecture notes. I rather call them lecture notes because I write down a lot of what they say during those lectures. It also feels like kind of a transcript of what they're saying, which is then like a lot to revise and go through in summer. But at the same time, you will not miss out. You have an overview. You can then like compress it and use this in summer to really study with. And if you don't want to put the effort in to write the whole summary yourself, like in our case, we have like the Nextcloud or the Wolke. Students sell their summaries to once a year to ETH or to the Architectura for 25 francs a semester or 50 francs the whole year content. There you can just download it and read it and like add little things that you think they are missing in there. This is also a great way on how you can like kind of avoid the big work effort, but also make those summaries your own in some way. Next on the schedule are ankis. Ankis are great because they use spaced repetition for you to learn, which is not like Quizlet where you can just make those cards digitally. No, Anki is really like learning with you. It will memorize, or you can say how good you already are handling those words or questions. You can add images, then it will pop up more often the less you know them well. If you know something not so well, it will pop up again and again and again, and you can like set the spaced timing yourself if you want to. Regular time lapsing of the ankis is already great by default. So what I do is, after revising the whole content of the lecture, I go through it and write down, after reading, for example, one lecture, the questions. For example, what does this person mean with this, or what was their goal of the work, or yeah, what's the whole meaning of that, or just a simple word like a project or so. I write it down, and then I have to like kind of ask myself in the meantime what the professor was talking about in the lecture, and then before flipping the card I try to either say it out loud, and if I don't know it because I'm in the beginning of my study phase, then I just have a look at it and say that I'm not so good and I want it revised really like fastly. Great thing about Anki is, in my opinion, is that you can add images, because I'm a visual learner. I need to see those things, otherwise I will not memorize them. So therefore I recommend you to not only put the name or the question in it, but also an image. Another great learning device are mind maps. I have a friend that only studies with mind maps, which is great because in a mind map you can visually display the themes, the names, the authors, then make the connections, and you can still like add images if you're working with the iPad, or also without the iPad you can just print them out and stick them on your paper. It's great because you can compress a lot of work in big sheets and just print them out and have a look at them daily, like repeat the stuff, always see like the little connection dots. So the pros is that you can make those connections, you have everything on one page. The cons are you tend to write really tiny, like if it's a lot of informations, and you can kind of get lost and it takes a lot of time to do them. On the other side, with Ankis, the pro thing is, well, it might take you some time to like compress the work, make those cards, but at the end, also with the summaries, while you're revising, you're already learning. And this is not to be underestimated. The more you revise, the more you learn. So it's really important for you to use that principle in regardless which strategic method you will choose, and revise as much as possible. So it will really like stick in your brain. Regarding revising, I recommend you to revise it within 24 hours, because then it's still kind of fresh in your brain, and then when you revise it, it will be like, oh, that's what I've just read, right? And every time you revise it again, you will see some other things clearly, or you will be able to make the connections, which is the most crucial part. Another strategy that is completely underestimated, in my opinion, is talks or discussions. What I mean with that is you sit down with a friend or yourself, if no one has time, that studies the same subject, but it can also be someone that doesn't study the same subject, honestly. You sit down with them, but please inform them that you want to do this. But you sit down with them and you talk about all those things that you just studied. So how I envision it, or how I am doing it, is I read one lecture or one transcript or my questions or like the things I'm studying. I go through them, like a stack of them, and then this person that studies with me does the same, and then after that we're like kind of telling each other what we memorized, what isn't clear. We ask ourselves questions, we try to answer them. If something is unclear, like try to figure it out why it is unclear. Through being able to explain something to someone in simple words and to make those connections with them is the most effective studying technique. Like really, over centuries we learned from each other. That is, when we learn a language, we sit down and we just try to talk. We are not afraid to fail, and we just talk, and while listening and while being corrected, just hearing and trying over and over and over again, we learn a language. That's something to underestimate. Sit down either with yourself, record it, make a podcast or small voice messages, or sit down with a friend who studies the same thing as you and go through everything. It takes time. Like, I remember in the first year, I've met up with a friend after a whole studying day. We met at 6 or 5 and we wanted to go through the whole content in one evening. Well, we managed like a fourth of it, and then it was 10 and we had to go. But it was so effective that the next day we were already having those information intus, and therefore we didn't need to study this like a lot more or more intensely. If you study something where more hard facts are required, I recommend you either Anki, or I really recommend you to go through all the exercises and make it work for you, because it requires time, of course, but if you don't go through the exercises and go through to the lectures, well, it will require you much more time and it will be much more difficult. So therefore, I really recommend you to go through all the lectures, watch them all, do all the exercises. You will figure something out. Now, you did all that what I was telling you to do. The exam is in a short scythe. Now, what do you do for an exam preparation, for a successful exam? This is what I do. This is what I would recommend to you. I write down questions that I think could be asked in the exam and try to like answer them either by myself or with a friend. I go through all the exercises again and try to solve them like in an exam setting to like simulate an exam with time, but also to test myself what I really know and what I already like know from studying, to figure out how much I still have to study. Regarding exam preparations, I would like to mention time scheduling, which is really an effective tool for you to get an overview of what you want to get done in which time, on what day you want to study which subject. This gives you like an overview and also a sense of time, so you can stick to a plan. You have a plan, and the people who have a plan and like kind of have this time schedule will mostly not disappoint, because they were just disciplined to sit down and do the work every day, in comparison to when you have no plan. You will actually not know when you will do what and be kind of lost. My ideal study day looks like this: that I wake up, I meditate, I go on a run or do some sports, or I write down my thoughts, I had breakfast, and then I sit down and do a to-do list, or I call it wanna-do list because it's nothing that I have to do, it's something that I want to do. I'm not forced. I want to put this work in because the most expensive thing that I'm wearing is my brain, and it will always be my brain. It's an investment that you put into yourself. I sit down, I write down my to-do list, which is mostly like exaggerating. It's always too much, too many things. I rarely accomplish everything, but I have a goal. Whole week I dedicate to either one subject or two subjects, so I split mornings and afternoons. In the morning I'm the freshest, so therefore the more complicated tasks or the tasks that take more energy, I do them in the morning, and the ones where I just read, I do them in the afternoon. And this is how I kind of like structure the day. In the evening, what is really important to me is that I kind of like treat myself with something I always wanted to do, or a matcha or a run or something that gives me like the kind of treat after a successful day of studying. You need to kind of like celebrate your accomplishment of the day. I think this is really important, to not lose the spark and energy and enjoyment of studying, which is such a joyful process. But of course it has its highs and lows, and you will have your doubts. You just have to power through them and not lose faith, because otherwise like your examination period will be so hard. The last and final step I want to address is the moment before and after the exam. Before the exam, it's normal to feel nervous because everything that is important to you make you like flimmer your heart, and you will feel like stressed and nervous and restless, and it might be that you didn't sleep so well till that moment because you were still revising. But there are some things I would love to address here. One thing is, one day before the exam, don't go crazy because you will need that energy on the exam day. Don't do an all-nighter studying or so. This is not worth it. Rather plan in advance, stick to your plan, like prepare, put that effort in before, because it will pay off at the end. I'm not doing so well like shortly before an exam. I need to study a bit in advance and be prepared, because otherwise I cannot function. I know people that are the complete opposite. They will not put in the effort and work before they feel the pressure. I'm the complete opposite. I need to have like the calmness and the relaxation and my own drive and spirit to power through such a phase, and I cannot work under so much high pressure. Funny that I chose a job which works a lot under high pressure. Side note. The moment before the exam, I want you to breathe in and breathe out like 5 times really deep through your nose and out through your mouth. Like this, 5 times. I want you to have your drinks prepared, your snacks prepared, your writing essential, your calculator, your little sugary things that give you energy in case you feel down during the exams. Like, have all those things prepared. If you want to, you can still go through your notes shortly before the exam. If you want to, you can talk to your colleagues. But in my case, it's always like this, that if I do, I tend to forget about the things we talked about during the exam because I get so nervous. So if it's more helpful for you to not talk to anyone till the exam, then I recommend you to do that. And then the moment after the exam, I would not recommend you to talk about how the exam went with your colleagues, because there will always be someone who did really well and they say, oh, I think I was shit, and there will always be someone who like did really shit and says like, wow, the exam was so easy, and like, oh, those people, you know them, I think, for sure, if you've been through school. On this note, I would love to thank you if you made it till here in this video. Only 20% of viewers, my whole subscribers, will make it to this point in the video, And don't forget to like and subscribe if you think those advices were beneficial and helpful, because this is what makes me going with this content. In that way, take care. I wish you all the best, and I see you in the next one. Bisous.